I'm Seth Pringle. The Claremont Lewis Museum of Art is proud to present the exhibition Andrée M. Mahoney, Spirit Voyager. This exhibition of painting and ceramics surveys 6 decades from this artist's prolific career of transforming spirit into form. We hope you enjoy hearing from the artist as well as her daughter Monica Mahoney, the curator of the exhibition.
Hello, I'm Andrée Mendenhall Tolstoy Mahoney. Welcome to my exhibition of my show called Spirit Voyager. And it's an honor to be in this gallery space here in Claremont, and each piece shown off beautifully. My daughter, Monica Lynn Mahoney, has been very helpful in helping me organize the work and then using her own expertise to arrange it in certain ways that make artistic sense. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how she paired certain pieces, which brought meaning from one decade to another.
Chakra Ladder represents the 7 chakras ascending from the bottom of the ladder to the top along the caduceus, the ancient symbol for healing. In a cycle of renewal, the symbols for the 7 steps of enlightenment merge with the crossover arcs that carry the eye upward along the caduceus. The artist is quoted as saying, "As a painter, I combine personal symbols and images with spiritual structures brought to the West through yogic traditions. I gained personal insight through yoga and meditation, with palpable transformative experiences that guided my creative practice. The latter is both personal and universal. It includes my grandmother's vintage lace to symbolize women's work and the interweaving of infinite ideas and patterns, analogous to the infinite patterns of fractal geometry, which underpins all of nature." The 3 canvases of Chakra Ladder increase in depth as the eye moves upward, and each panel contains symbols of color and light. Colors and symbols of transformation from the lower to upper rungs on the Chakra Ladder start with the color red. The color red represents the root or base chakra and contains images from World Wars I and II that illustrate worldly and inner conflict. Andrée Mahoney is also quoted as saying, "My childhood terrors of World War II are felt as I missed my father, who was stationed in Europe and often absent as a military officer through my formative years. My uncle, who was lost in the Pacific during the war, profoundly affected my childhood experiences." Red serves as the color of life and death, strong, palpable, and powerful. The second chakra is identified by the color orange, and it is noted as the sacral or second chakra, represented by the sun and the moon and the tree of life, which is something that Mahoney focused on with this particular chakra to contain the universal sacred aspects of the tree of life to act as a bridge for transcendence. This is the generative and creative center, the origin of life, abundance, and creativity. The life-giving tree with roots reaching into the earth and branches rising out of the first chakra, violence, out of that conflict, uphold the center of the 3rd chakra, or the navel center, held within the concentric yellow circles. You can see here on both sides of this panel, larger scale geological and weather patterns are expressed as cracks, electricity, and spirals, signaling the omnipotence of nature with both creative and destructive powers. Then we move to the 3rd chakra, or the navel center, which is represented in the color yellow. This is the solar plexus, if we trace the chakras in the body, which is represented by expanding circles of new creation surrounding an inner compass with directional arrows and energy systems that show us the way through known and unknown forces. This third chakra is the seat of joy and pleasure, and the center of intuition, inner knowing, and trust. We move up another rung to the second panel and the heart chakra, which is represented by the green colors of the color wheel, a traditional red heart symbol where greens and reds merge together. When the heart is full, it is free and radiates and disperses itself in blue-green energy, as in opening the heart in yogic practice, or when the heart is deemed light as a feather in ancient Egyptian mythology. We now move to the color blue, which represents the fifth chakra, or the throat chakra, which represents the voice, the breath, vision, and the chalice of communication. The chalice of communication is much like the tree of life in the second chakra, where it helps us define an important crossover point for the soul and the body. In the body, this chakra relates to balance in the endocrine, circulatory, and nervous systems. On the soul level, it relates to the healing power of sound and inward and outward communication. And the second to the last chakra, the color indigo, as shades of blue and purple, which leads the soul on its journey to white light, the light of transcendence framed by the chalice of abundance and the third eye of wisdom, clarity, and foresight. Notice here in this area the fractals and vintage lace crowning the third eye here at the sixth chakra and bridging the chalice. The seventh chakra, expressed once again in vintage lace as a winged fractal, mirrors the sixth chakra while ascending into the uppermost violet and white planes of enlightenment. At the top, a mathematical fractal, painted in white, turquoise, blue, and black, illustrates the infinite, the relationship to mathematics, itself an abstract language, signals the ever-expanding human search for knowledge, expansion, and transcendence. And this brings us to the culmination of the chakra ladder from upper to lower, and really represents the artist's personal connection to the chakra system and how those chakras relate to color and symbolism in her own life. The Chakra Mural was created after the Chakra Ladder as a larger modular piece that Andrée wanted to expand the ideas that she was working out in the Chakra Ladder into a piece that would become much more immersive for her audience, and to showcase sort of the magnitude of her meditation experiences and yoga experiences, which are what she called very transcendental, or a way for her to connect to soul and spirit through the practice of meditation and yoga. In this way, this piece is in parallel alignment with the Transcendentalist painting group, and we can see her treatment of symbols and form and metaphor with this piece, the moving up from base chakra or the root chakra to the middle heart chakra again, and then up to higher consciousness, and then accessing the spirit and the soul of enlightenment. In this way, and through the beauty of form and the feathers at the very top. And also you can see areas where there's almost these sunbursts in the yellow centers. You can see it in the chalice above the two faces and the third eye, and then again transitioning up through the caduceus into another realm of higher consciousness and out the tops of the diamond-shaped canvas which moves the eye and continues the movement upward and off of the canvas and expanding outward. And this was an important part of the layout functionally by turning the canvases on the diagonal. And those diagonals really help push the energy upward and outward and activate the colors of each of the chakra centers. The modular layout of the piece is really important because it allows Andrée to reconstruct the mural to fit in different places and different spaces. And as you can see on the adjacent wall, we have the lower modular pieces that are reconstructed into a new configuration with that idea of the violence in life and wars on the bottom diagonal panels, and then balanced with the world religions, the peace dove, and efforts for world communication and coexisting in a peaceful way, in a peaceful dynamic. And so she's really working with these dichotomies or some of the polarization that we see actually happening in the world right now. And even though these paintings were made in 2000, they really resonate today.
The Heart to Plane Shift series consists of 4 vibrant paintings that resonate with the tenets of the Transcendentalist painting group. The Transcendentalist painting group formed in 1938 to address the spiritual in art through geometric abstraction and color. The aim was to visualize the relationships between science and the ineffable, or that which cannot be measured. The 12-member group officially disbanded in 1942 due to the pressures of World War II. Similarly, Mahoney's artwork seeks to transcend the lower consciousness of war to the transformative planes of higher consciousness. The Heart to Plane Shift series provides a strong example of this alignment with the Transcendentalist painting group. And when shown as the 4 in the series, Mahoney calls these the spiritual quartet. The role of geometry is quite important to note here. She uses geometric abstraction to convey her understanding of the cosmic realms, also a core tenet of the Transcendentalist painting group. She pairs symmetry as a representation of stability with asymmetry as a signal of change and transformation to activate otherworldly experiences in the viewer. For example, the first in the series, 11 Hearts, conveys pure symmetry with a central horizon line of mirrored hearts radiating out in multiples, signaling abundance and boundless love.
There are 11 hearts in there, and if you want to count more, there could be more as they multiply and see through and are working with transparencies. And red is a very, very deep, rich, opaque, particularly vermilion red. It tends to be quite opaque. And I was trying to work with transparency, that the heart has flow through and depth and multiplicity. And also I was trying to use the warm, cool to activate the vibrancy of the color. There's a few purples in here, and then the turquoise is lighter. And this is another thing I have to interject. I taught for so many years that understanding the tone value of a certain color. Now, red tends to be quite dark. It's above middle gray, the standard middle gray. I think photographers use a middle gray much more than painters do. But in order to get the shimmer in here, I had to have the cool turquoise along with about the same value orange. Now, I think the orange is the same value as the turquoise, but we all see things differently. The rods and cones in our eyes, we've all inherited different capabilities to see warm and cool and light and dark, the tones as well as the tones and the pigment color. So this was an exercise in working with how you make same values of different colors, of opposite colors, work together to vibrate, to shimmer a little more.
In contrast to 11 Hearts, asymmetry now plays an important role in the second painting of the series called Abundance and Reciprocity. This painting features an interpretation of the biblical fish shape. Here, the fish symbol is painted as an asymmetrical form and turned vertical to indicate patterns in motion. The artist uses motion as a signal of change, which is indicated here as the eye moves from the left edge of the painting with light pinks and greens to the darker earthen and night sky tones to the right of the painting. The center of the painting, or fish form, reveals a nucleus of activity between light and dark. Here, the idea of opposites creates a visual tension. The biblical fish also represents generosity and reciprocity. Sharing your bounty creates abundance in return. This play on symmetry and asymmetry between these two paintings and throughout the quartet, the artist emphasizes all of the principles of design in spiritual abstraction. She attributed her command of formal design to her mentor, Jean Ames, who was her only female art professor at Scripps College and Claremont Graduate University at the time in the 1950s and 1960s. Similarly, of all members of the Transcendentalist painting group, Mahoney was most taken by the works of Agnes Pelton, who also painted the ineffable, using geometric abstraction.
Andrée painted Still Life with Skull in 1958, a few years after she graduated from Scripps with her undergraduate art degree. When we look at it over the arc of her career, it's an important transition piece as well in the exhibition, which talks about the life cycles, life, death, rebirth, and we see that in the skull and the wooden branch forms, the stone forms in the still life, where she's really looking at bringing in works of nature in this composition and the ideas of decay and regeneration. And it's an important formal still life piece where she was working out her skills in painting and the ability to articulate light and shadow on the drapery, and also working with tonal values and earth tone values, and really perfecting the use of tonal values here.
But this still life was intentionally set up with dead matter. And I think it was an attempt for art teachers at the time to display neutral color and to teach the students how not to paint straight from the tube. Because in beginners, they want to just squeeze out the tube and, oh, these colors are pretty, let's use all of these. And that they have to mix and subtly mix, and not painting at one flat color, but mixing and mushing the paint around so the background doesn't distract from the very subtly colored natural objects. But I had to subdue their interest, not to detract the flow of the driftwood and the unusual angles in the skull. And it was under the influence of Henry Lee McPhee, who had died 2 years before I painted this. But he had started me on doing still life. And I really enjoyed doing them till this day.
This relates beautifully to a later piece, which is a boat piece. This was made many years later in 1982. And this is a combination of stoneware and porcelain boat that also brings in the idea of passage. So the title can represent both transport and moving literally through the night, the body moving through the night, or the transport of goods and services on boats through the night, but also the metaphor for death. And we can see the darker sort of winged shapes that create the boat, and then we see the lighter bone-like porcelain shapes on top of the boat, like the cargo. It's maybe the cargo of the spirit or the cargo of the soul bursting out, being released or freed from the body as what happens in death. And then again, carrying on this concept of light and dark, and Andrée's exquisite use of light in her work is transferred here also into sculpture. This piece, Reflections in Light and Dark, and is also mixed clay bodies, stoneware, porcelain, as well as using fibers. She interweaves horsehair and embroidery thread in this piece. And there's many reasons for the use of these materials and the combination of the materials. But what we want to see first is the larger concept of this piece. In the center, we have the horizon line and the earth plane. And above that, we see the arc of the sky and how the almost rainbow-like shapes of the porcelain and the stoneware arc over the earth. And then below the horizon line, we have these human shapes, these body shapes, almost like breasts or udders. And this was an important part of Andrée's work with feminist ideologies as a second wave feminist, and bringing the power of the woman's body into the narrative of her work. And so the woman's body as connected to nature, the woman's body as connected to spirit and the sky. And also, what I want to mention in this piece is the subtle suggestion of the sunburst coming out from that horizontal colored embroidery thread and those diagonal textured shapes, and almost like a sunburst coming out through the horizon. So this relationship of the body to the earth, to the sky, to the spirit is quite prevalent in this piece. From a curatorial standpoint, I really felt that these really worked beautifully together in conversation because of the flow of the forms that you have here, but also the tones and the dynamics, just the way that the placement of the forms flows. This off the canvas and then this off of the pedestal in a way. And so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about maybe those relationships.
Well, I'm so glad you're pointing that out, Monica, because it's so true. The 3D, I mean, painters paint on a flat surface, and they use every trick in the book to make the surface have depth. And there are many tricks to use, and I've studied most of them, and I tend to try to teach some of them. But in working with very close color, there comes a point where there's very little difference between one tone and another tone. And as soon as the painter, you become a painter when you see the closeness of tone or value and are able to work with that and get away from extreme contrasts. Every ceramic piece takes the talent or the ability of engineering, and that's part of the fun of doing ceramics rather than painting. Painting, it's there. You stretch the canvas and there you have your material surface. But when you're doing sculpture, you've got to think about weight and balance and malleability. And paint is just so very workable in its fluid state. But you're working with clay that changes. It changes texture many, many times throughout its whole creative endeavor. And so that's one way to make creating 3D and 2D more interesting to the artist, is how you deal with it.